Hello, everybody, and welcome to the IC Topic Chats. Today is Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. We are talking about business planning today. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart, as well as most of the things that we talk about. But this was one that I've spent a bit of time thinking about recently, and I presented to some of the workshops on how to do independent consulting. And talking about just the basic idea of how to think about your business, how to communicate your business primarily to, well, yourself, and perhaps to anybody else who's invested in your business, which in my case, when I put my original business plan together, was my wife. I felt like I needed to convince her what I was doing so that she was behind me quitting my full-time job and coming to do this whole crazy Goshen education consulting thing. Instead of working full-time, not so I could do that anyway. Just a wild different experience. But anyway, I have already shared in the chat the business plan template. I'm putting it in there again, and anybody who's watching this asynchronously through YouTube, you will find this. I'll try and put it in the YouTube so you can have access to it. But you should have also received it through the email that goes out. So you'll see it there. The business plan template, when you open it up, it is in fact a Word template. If you want to open it up and follow it on the second screen, or I'll also pull it up and I'll be looking at it at the same time. But I'm going to do that right now. Let's see if I can get that to work. And we'll do this together. Okay. So here's my folder where all my stuff is. And I pop it open. See which screen it decides to populate into. All right, so you can see here. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody that you can see the? Oh, good. Thanks, Helena. Thanks, Miranda. You see, this is just a template. It's got a little color, a slight bit of design. Feel free to redo the design. But it's just a template for you to use, for you to think through. It's asking you the questions for you to think through what your business could and should be, and how you should think about doing it. So the things that I'm going to show in the slides, which I'm going to be popping back and forth with this, should be similar to here, but the slides are going to talk through, give me direction on what I want to talk about with the business plan template. So just to take a step back, why do we do a business plan? Business plans for a lot of folks are to request money from like a bank, and you have accountants involved with it. In the whole Silicon Valley world, they have like slide decks, and they're asking for angel fund investments. Most of us don't do that, and that's actually the beauty of our business, because most of us can do whatever we do as grad students, or we can do this as side hustles, right? And then we can develop a business without any investment, not direct investment through the purposes of a loan. I mean to say, certainly there's a lot of investment in time and other kinds of investments in our education. But we are typically not going to a bank and asking for $100,000 and then paying that money back to start up a consulting business. I've never heard of it. So that's the beauty. It's like I said, that's the beauty of what we do. That being said, it's really good to have a plan. And I think most of us should be on board with this idea, because that's what we do for our clients, right? We help them identify how they're going to measure the impact of their work as program evaluators, or some variety of that. We are data analysts. We want to know that what we're doing has the desired impact for our clients, and we want to know what we're doing within our businesses has the desired impact for us as businesses and as individuals who own our businesses or are invested in our businesses in one way or another. And so, like I said, I originally created my business plan for myself, just to get my head around what I was attempting to do, and then for my wife to convince her it was a good idea that we do this. But it's become something that is one of my core documents that I reference back to. My process for thinking through the business plan helped me identify 4 principles that Goshen still lives by today, which is integrity, locality, clarity, and sustainability. I'll go into those, but that was just my sit down brainstorm idea that still provides direction to who we are today. And that's the general idea. This is just to give yourself direction and grounding for who you are and what you're trying to do. So let me go into my slides. So the first thing we'll see is the company. I should say, I didn't put the reference on there. I wonder if I have the book here. This is based upon, here it is. I wouldn't say what you're looking at came from this book, but Rhonda Abrams, she's and I'll put this in the chat, but she is a writer for USA Today. She does business, does a lot of business articles, and she's like the small business editor for USA Today. She's written a couple of these books. When I first decided I was going to start a business, I went to a session through the Small Business Development Center, and there was this small business accountant teaching it, and she was teaching us how to do business planning. And I thought, well, this is good. And that was my initial start. So I built my business plan using this book, and what you see here is a lot of derivations different from that, but the initial nutshell of it came from this book. So I'll make sure it's out there. So this book's probably 10, 15 years old now, but I'm sure this was the second edition. I'm sure they're on to the fifth or the sixth edition now. So, you know, they always seem to repopulate. Anyway, so you start with the company, right? You want to talk about who you are, right? Who are you? What type of business do you want to be? Do you have values? What's your mission? What are these things? What is it? What's the core of what it is that you want to do? Why are you doing this? This is the very heart of it all. So I think you understand this. I shouldn't need to explain this stuff to you, because we start with this with our clients most of the time, particularly when they're thinking about that thing they're trying to do. Who are you, and what does that thing you're trying to do represent as a part of who you are? We say that with our clients. This is the same thing. And I think a lot of us have this pretty well nailed down, or we should. But you start here. It's the first thing that I do anyway. Just describe who you are. Very much related, excuse me, very much related to that is the next piece, which is the niche. You can make a case for these being the same section, but I do think this is different. This is, who do you want to serve? So you started with who you are, now who do you want to serve? I use the term ikigai. It's a Japanese term, which is that intersection of four things. I've talked about three in the past, which are three parts of ikigai, which are what are the things that you love, what are the things that you're good at, and where's the money? Okay, so that's talents, interests, and business opportunities. But the fourth is, what is it that the world needs? And that's kind of the fourth, and that's kind of the Japanese perspective on ikigai. So what is that niche, right? Your niche needs to be focused on those things. If you're not thinking about all four of those things, like as overlapping circles, then you probably aren't in a sustainable business. And so thinking about that, having that understanding is a great perspective. Well, taking your niche further is, who do you want to serve? Who are those customers? You can make a case for this being its own section as well. Where are they located? How do they think? Who do they serve? Where's their money? Where are they? How are they staying in business? For me, it's school districts and universities, and particularly their extramural funding from outside of their normal organizations. They're going after grants, and how are those external funds coming in? Who's providing that to them? For me, it's the Department of Defense, the National Science Foundation, the U.S. Department of Education, the state of Illinois. Who is your competition? When I first started, I thought my competition still is psychology professors. Frequently, people who you go directly to psychology professors who are at the local universities. And the university, usually it's university folks, a lot of them who are going after these grants, and then they say, we have an external evaluation requirement. Who are we going to work with? And then they don't want to think about who's their evaluator. They just think about who can do this, and then they find somebody in a social science discipline. What makes you uniquely qualified to serve this niche? So what is it about you that's going to make you successful? It should kind of reflect back on your ikigai, all these things, but it's kind of taking that question a little bit further. How are you better than the others? For me, I think our thing that sets us apart is our ability to communicate our data, particularly through the things that my colleague Tom has done with regards to data dashboarding. And now it's because we understand the marketplace a little bit better than everyone else. Because we've been around, we have an understanding and insights into our clients' funders, right? We know how to write for them. And so you work with us and you have a better opportunity to get funded. The next section, let's see here. And by the way, just as a reminder, this is a template. When you go in and you start typing this stuff, it's really interesting. You would select any of these like this, the company, and you could just start typing. That's just a field that is set up for you to start typing into. So the company, for me, I would say Goshen Education Consulting is, but it's set up so it's a cool little field that's when you select it, you have the opportunity to start typing over it. It's got questions here for each one of these. So we're talking about marketing and sales strategy, and that's this kind of third section here. This was developed out from my friend Laura Keene's work and her presentations. So you want to share what your marketing message is. She has this idea from her worksheet that is not included here, but you want to talk about, fill out the sentence. I help these people. You know how to do this because, well, what I do is, anyway, the point is this is an elevator speech. What's your elevator speech? When somebody says, what do you do? Here's your elevator speech that you put in there. And then key with marketing is what's your network? Who do you connect with? How do you connect with those people? What do you want to share with those people? What are the benefits and drawbacks of this approach? So that's here what you've got in this section. And the other thing with marketing, it's what's your style? How do you present yourself? What is your name? What is your logo? Why do you select these? Do you want your name? My last name is Feldman. My company's not Feldman Education Consulting, it's Goshen Education Consulting. Every once in a while I get called Matt Goshen because I figure that's my last name. I chose not to have my last name as part of my company because for various reasons that I don't need to go into, but you should understand what that is and how that communicates your message of who you're trying to be and how you can serve your clients. Finances and fees. So by the way, every one of these slides is it's an entire presentation I've given at one point or another through YouTube. And so finances and fees, certainly we've got a couple presentations on that. What is your per diem rate, hourly or daily? Are you charging $80 an hour, $200 an hour? Why? How did you calculate that? This is for your own information. You may not be sharing this out with others unless there's a reason to do so. Usually internal documents for this piece. What are your startup expenses? How much does it cost if you're going from you have no business at all and you're trying to put something together? I mean, you're going to have to pay for things to get started, like a computer, right? You need to pay for insurance. Well, that's an annual budget item. But what are those startup expenses? And if you need any help with that, we've got an entire worksheet on those expenses, things you should be thinking about. What are the things that are involved with your annual budget? I said insurance. Hopefully you're thinking about professional development for yourself. So you want to make sure you put some money aside for that. Trust me, there's a lot of money in software. You need to spend a lot of money on software these days. For everything I turn around, I have another subscription that I have to pay for survey software and qualitative analysis software. And I've got a business now, and we're on the Google platform, and that's an annual and a monthly fee. We've got Zoom subscriptions in my business too. And I'm not big enough to ask for a discount yet. So it's all very expensive. Who are you working with for accounting and finances? Who's your accountant? Who's your how are you thinking through that? What kind of a process are you working with that? Do you have a line of credit? Do you plan to have savings, or do you have some savings? How much should you have as cash on hand? You need to think through these things. So that's all in this part of the worksheet here. The finances and fees. There we go. In this initial budget, you can see this is kind of the way I do things. I have two columns. I have an expense column and a revenue column. This is directly based upon the way I started things up when I was just trying to put something together. I had to figure something out back. This was 12 years ago, maybe longer. It was, yeah, like 2009. Anyhow, I put, what are my projects? What do I expect to get in revenue per year? What's my salary? Do I have any staff? You put them here. What kind of taxes do you need to pay? What are those non-personnel costs like PD and software? Hypothetically, your revenue minus your expenses equals a positive number, but you may find that you're at zero. Hopefully, you're at zero or higher for profit. That's okay too. When I first started out, I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's not about the business plan. Certainly, even recently, we start the year out. Here's our budget for what we think we're going to get in revenue, what we know we're going to have, what we think we might have. There's usually a big difference there. And we know what our expenses are. And so my expenses almost always exceeded my revenues to start off the year, because when particularly in the early days, the first 5 years, I had no idea what I was going to make, but I just had to trust the process. And it was scary. But I had to trust the process, because every year I ended up exceeding my expenses. But in January, I had no idea how that was going to happen. Usually I wouldn't find myself in the black, profitable until September or October of the year. So that was scary, but it was part of the process. And I think that's probably one of the things that scares some people away from this, because they just got to believe that it's going to happen. So it's sort of a blind faith kind of thing. All right, let's see here. Operations. What is your organizational structure? If you're first starting out, you'll probably be a sole proprietorship. But are you an LLC or an S corp? When I decided to go 100% focused on this, I was advised wisely to become a S corp, and so I employ myself as an employee, and I have to separate the employee side from the owner side. But those are the things to think about there. Do you have any key performance indicators, such as your percent of time on billable work? What are the things that you're measuring about yourself, so you have regular feedback to yourself? Who are your professional assistants with regards to advisors, your small business development center, any legal advice? Do you have a business coach? I would list the ICTIG here. And anybody that you might be thinking about, if you're part of the, what's it called? Anyway, masterminds, that's the word I was looking for. If you're part of the masterminds, I would list them here. Who are the people that are helping you out, but also who are you paying to help you out as well? And finally, all business plans should have an exit strategy. What do you do if you need to leave? We have a couple of people who've been involved with the ICTIG who've decided to leave for good reasons, who've left and come back. There's Susan Wolf here. Susan Wolf left and came back. We infected her with the excitement of independence. She had to come right back, right, Susan? We know of a situation where there's somebody who started a business, and she thinks she grew her business for the purposes of the fact that she wanted to spend more time with her mother, who was ill. And so that was part of her strategy, and she ended up selling her business and then leaving. Now, frankly, if you're in this for the long haul and you're thinking about this critically and strategically, you may want to sell your business. So that's a huge deal. And actually, this business plan is the first step along those lines. Because if you talk to anybody who wants to potentially purchase your business, they're going to want to know that you've got these things figured out. They want to know that you understand your finances, you have standard operating procedures, that you have contracts, you have good structure. You want to be able to communicate this to somebody else. So, but if everything goes awry, what happens? If you have employees, what do you do with your liabilities? Do you continue to work on your projects? Now, obviously, you're not going to know until you get to this point, but you should have kind of a plan. Do you have some sort of an indicator that says it's time for you to exit? When I don't know what that might be. You have to figure that out. How do you know when it's time to leave? It's the big question. And then finally, there's probably some additional sections that you could think about. I didn't put a logic model in here. I don't have a logic model for my business, but I think a lot of people do because we talk logic models with organizations all the time. So I think that makes sense. Do you want a section for contracts, sample contracts or MOUs? Do you want to list your standard operating procedures and what those documents look like? Do you want an employee manual? You may not have employees, you're probably not there yet. What is your plan for subcontracting? Either as a subcontractor to others or incorporating subcontractors into your business. Do you have a 5-year plan? Do you want to include your CV or your resume here? Those are different things you might want to put in. Okay, let's see here. So here's my 5.5 reflections today. First of all, a business plan gives directions to your business, helps you understand what you're trying to do. This is probably a private document. You may be sharing this with certain people for various reasons. You feel free to share it with whomever, but it is really, particularly for who we are, the people who are on this call today. This is primarily a document for yourself to get your head around what you're trying to do and give yourself direction. It is a consolidated document of all your thoughts about your business. It is a living document. I'm not a good example for this because I haven't updated my business plan. And I feel like my business plan is growing and changing constantly, but I don't have one document that I've gone back to. So I'm not a good example for that. But it is a document that should continue to grow and develop as your business develops. It's good for you to reference as you pursue your work. So all these things that you put together, your mission statement, your plan of attack, these are things that you can reference as you're going back out to talk to people. Oftentimes we have like little paragraphs that would say, Matt Feldman, firm director, I've done all this work with the U.S. Department of Education and National Science Foundation. I have these little statements that I copy and use in different proposals. That's the sort of thing that could be in here too. And to describe yourself to others. So anyway, here's our upcoming sessions. There's today's, which is business plan development. Next week, we'll be going through the 2015 Independent Consulting TIG survey, and I'm going to be talking through the qualitative themes. In 2 weeks, Juliana Rosa will be doing a book review with us on the book Making the New Normal Work for You. And then Chelsea Horvath will be on June 23rd talking about selecting a lawyer. That was a topic that came up in the emails that go out to everybody. So, all right, with that, I'm gonna stop the recording and we can chat. I'd love to hear your feedback on this and maybe other sections you'd like to put in.